All right, guys, we're getting close to wrapping up the install for the long-range auxiliary tank for the 4Runner here, and just wanted to talk with Walt a bit about what the impression that we had about the whole process. This is a first-of-kind installation on the 4Runner. How was the kit? Were there any improvements that we're going to make moving forward?
I think anything that's going to be improved on with the auxiliary, first of all, for a prototype fitment, this actually went extremely good. There really wasn't anything to really go by as far as like paperwork or any kind of. We had a loose example of, say, the Prado 150 or the GX style setup, where some of it was familiar under there as far as cross members and where things needed to sit. But other than that, it was really not bad at all. Yeah. We didn't have to remove the factory tank. There was minimal modification to the filler tube, but that was all part of the plumbing for this tank. Mm-hmm. It fits really nice. We've all made the comment that they used every square inch of available space under there. Yeah. So they did a really great job with that. Mm-hmm. The tank is very stout. You know, the 12 gauge steel that it's built out of, all the bracketry that's on it's very tough. Mm-hmm. You're never going to have to worry about, I mean, if you were to bend or break that, you've got a bigger problem. Sure. You know, you've probably had a car accident or something. Yeah. But,
well, and the angle that they put into the design seems to really match the departure angle of 4Runner anyhow.
Yeah, actually it looks really good. It looks more like a skid plate than anything else. It's, I mean, you would normally see a tire there otherwise, you know, but I think it looks great. The install, I think, went really well. Kind of a disclaimer though, from LRA, it's not ever intended or to be communicated that this is just a quick bolt-on, do-it-yourself in your driveway type modification. They are very adamant about having a qualified shop, one of their dealers, do the install for someone. Mm-hmm. You don't.
And myself, I'd like to do all of my own stunts basically, and I can definitely see the advantage of having the lift, number one. Right. Yeah. And then you are going to be welding on a fuel system at some point. So absolutely, it's better to have someone who's going to be qualified to handle that in a controlled environment.
Yeah, if somebody's not real familiar with their fuel system or something like that, they could be a competent mechanic. Sure. Absolutely, but if, you know, with the way the charcoal canister is oriented, some of that does have to be modified. All of those lines get disconnected. Mm-hmm. You've got gas fumes and stuff in there, and it could be a disaster if somebody were to spark up a cigarette or something at the wrong time, you know, whereas you are drilling a hole in your fuel filter or fuel filler and you're welding a bung into that to thread in a fitting. There is welding needs to be done out on the bench, things like that. So there are precautions that need to be taken, and there was really nothing that was too much of a surprise to what we needed to do. It was a little different than all the other tanks that we've been doing because of those have been replacement tanks. So the tank would come out of the truck and we would build it that way. Mm-hmm. And there really isn't any welding or anything for that. But this, being an auxiliary tank, you have to do some things like that to tap into your factory system.
Gotcha. So overall, I mean, it went better than I expected, honestly. Yeah. There were no oh crap moments at all. It was just a matter of finding, okay, this goes here, and route it specific to the 4Runner as opposed to, like you're saying, an Australian Prado or something like that. So. Now, we've gotten a lot of questions on social media as this has all been playing out. So just real quick, I wanted to kind of go through those. The number one question that we're getting or comment or concern is, what's that weight going to do to the vehicle?
Yeah, there's a lot of funny things we came up for that. But, you know, to be completely candid and honest about it, it's you figure a gallon of gas with a quick Google search. A gallon of gas weighs roughly 6.5 pounds per gallon. You know, that's 214 pounds of just fuel by itself. Right. The tank wasn't really that heavy. It was, you know, when Rooster and I lifted it up there and he put it in himself, you know, we test fitted the thing probably 20 times, you know, but he put the thing up in there himself. It's probably 30 pounds, 35 pounds for the empty tank itself, which isn't bad at all. So you figure just shy of 250 pounds, you're probably not even going to feel it in the vehicle.
It's like having someone ride along with you for a bit.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, you go and pick up a couple buddies, you weigh far more than that. Sure. You know, and nobody thinks about changing their springs or their shocks or anything for going to pick up their friends, you know.
That's true.
And, you know, like we talked about, it's from the very second you top that sucker off at the gas station, it's at its max weight it'll ever weigh. You instantly get lighter as you pull away from the gas station. So, you know, from there to the next gas fuel point, you're getting lighter. So the weight, it's in a really good spot. You know, it's just right behind the axle. I don't foresee there being an issue with any kind of clearance or anything like that, but you know, that weight down where it was, you had a spare tire there before. Now it doesn't weigh that much, the spare tire, but it is weight in a good spot. You know, it's not on the roof. It's not as a cantilever way off in the back of the bumper now. I mean, you can take your fuel cans off the bumper now. So you're transferring weight back forward, down low. And it's a good spot for the weight. And it's minimal weight, honestly. I mean, a couple backpacks and 2 people is going to be more than that. You know?
Yeah, so looking forward to getting it out on the trail and just burning down and seeing what kind of range I can get out of it. And, I may try and hit a few trails over in Arizona and maybe see if I can hit that thing. But there's a lot of people in Australia that's been running these things for 30 years that this company's been in business, and they'll tell you I have beat that thing on rocks multiple times and it's never punctured once. So I really don't have a concern. Now, if you just absolutely are worried about that, or you have plans to be a rock crawler, you have the option to put in a small skid plate under there.
For sure, and kind of the sky's the limit there. You could, you know, you could do anything from welding a couple tabs. Now, as you're installing the tank before it has ever had fuel or anything like that in it, when you have it, you know, you could say test fit it like we did. You test fit it, bolt it into place, see where it's going to sit. But you could weld little tabs to it, bolt a skid plate on if you want to. You could weld a skid plate directly to it. It is a steel tank, you know, so you could bolt on an aluminum skid plate, you know, nice thick aluminum skid, or, you know, break it up over the edges or something, really kind of get creative with it. There are options there to where you could do that. It's one of those what if moments. I mean, if you're driving off-road anyway, like we talked about, you got to be thinking about what you're doing anyway. You should be protecting your diffs when you're driving anyway. You don't want to be crushing that stuff through rocks. If you hit your diff on a rock, you're going to hit your diff before you're going to hit that tank. You know, and so if you're driving to protect your drivetrain, you're not going to have to worry about that tank because you're not, you know, you're not actively just trying to drag the rear bumper down off of stuff. Sometimes it happens, yes, it does, but it is designed to take a hit. You know, I mean, it's not new technology. It's not a new design. The fitment is new for us in the U.S. market, but it's been tried and true, you know, and there isn't a single thing on this planet that's man-made that doesn't break or show signs of wear. I mean, it's the nature of the beast. So if you get some scratches, you get scratches, or a little dent, you get a dent. It's not going to hurt anything. The cool thing about it is in a pinch, you could just disconnect that tank. You know, we only plumbed, it's our plumbing that went in there. You know, so if you had to, you could drain it or you could disconnect it. You have a switch now in the dash that pumps the fuel from that tank to your main tank. You could bypass it altogether if you had to in a worst case scenario. You know, so it's not the end of the world if something were to happen, just like anything else in the vehicle. If there's damage, you can usually get it fixed or repaired. Not a big deal. I mean, honestly, if you did punch a hole in that, it could be, you know, bent back into place and seal up a hole, welded shut later, you know, in a controlled environment. You can repair that and it's good to go. So it's not like the factory plastic tank. That's a little different scenario. You know, so.
Well, and truth be told, the skid plate that goes under the factory tank is much thinner than the auxiliary tank itself. I mean, that's your first weak point.
You know? Absolutely. So. Well, you figure the manufacturer wants to spend as little money as possible throughout the entire thing to make it meet the standards they have to meet, you know, so it's up to the aftermarket companies that build skid plates or that build tanks. You know, they're gonna focus their efforts into making an exceptional product that works, and it's not just a throwaway component. You know, it's there to do its job extremely well. So
now the other question that we've already getting right now is, what's the install time? What do you project it costing to do an install for this particular tank? I know it's early, but I think we kind of talked about a range, right?
I mean, we were very careful about what we were doing here. I mean, we were talking about every fitting
and filming every step.
We got really deep into this thing and discussed a lot of different things, and on its design, on what could be different possibly, you know, all kinds of different things. So it took a lot longer, even in a prototype fitment, it took a lot longer than it probably could have. And we were at it for 2 full days. Today, We'll have a couple hours wrapped up into just running the loom that we built yesterday for the plug down along the chassis to the tank and the little pump. So you figure with us taking our time and really having to really figure out orientation of certain fittings and plumbing and things like that, that was two 8-hour work days, so 16 hours there and then a couple hours today.
Yeah.
When we normally do the replacement tanks, say on the Tacomas or the Tundras, they recommend you pull the bed off the truck. When we're doing these builds, we pull the bed off the truck anyway, because we're doing all the rear suspension stuff, but that gives you access to the sending unit on the top of the tank and making sure your plumbing and everything is good there between the frame rails. So that takes us about 2 days as well, because we set everything else up, outside the truck. And then when we drop the tank, a lot of times there's fuel in it that we do have to transfer over. So we're being careful with, we try to get as much of the fuel out of the tank before we bring it in, but sometimes we'll have fuel in the tank, transfer everything over after the tank is back in the new tank is in the truck. But that takes roughly 2 days, to do that. But that's doing a bunch of extra steps rather than just adding a tank to a spot under the truck.
Well, I would say that, like I said, if we weren't meticulously documenting every single step and looking at improvements, just with the parts that we had, we could have probably cut that time down by at least 30% and just
that sounds about right.
Go and knock it out. So it's a very meticulous installation, and it should be because you're dealing with your fuel system. But
all of your venting has to be right. There can't be like a kinked hose or anything like that. Everything's got to be correct, and there's no way to really. I could see how somebody could shortcut a few things, but there's a lot of things that we're pretty careful about because it is your fuel system, and there's a lot of vent lines going on with your canister, your charcoal canister that have to be right, and you don't want to have just vapors coming out from underneath the truck. Along with that just made me think of something. Your exhaust. I think I saw a comment where someone was asking about how you have to reroute your exhaust, and you don't. You do not have to touch your exhaust at all. We made a little modification to yours just because the end of it was damaged a little bit.
It's already whistling.
So. So we made the same modification to yours that we do to ours. We just trim it in a certain place where it dumps out away from the vehicle. But other than that, no modifications to the exhaust. There is a cross member that has to be removed, and that's all from basically housing the spare tire. That's pretty much it.
And then there's the caveat of the different type of rear bumpers that
was another one too.
We had to swap a couple of braces on this particular one. So.
Yeah, with this bumper here, it was a very simple modification, but you got to be able to kind of look at the big picture and see how you can still keep the structural integrity of the bumper and have to make those modifications and being able to think through that, because we were short on our clearance by about 1.5 inches on each side to get the tank to go fit between the frame rails. So we used the brackets that were there, we just kind of trimmed and fitted it a slightly different way, and it fits in perfect. All those brackets are in place. I think like with some of the ones we'll do in the future, we'll have to look at that as from a case-by-case basis, because all of these bumpers have different brackets that fit up underneath there. But they're all designed to work, with the factory frame rails and factory holes and things like that. But with the tank having to go into, new cross members that they send, we have to remove certain cross members and things like that. But there is no structural integrity that's degraded in between the frame rails or back in the back of the truck. The main fully boxed cross members are all still there. So it's a very strong system. I'm really happy with the way it fits. I really love the way it looks. I mean, that's a lot of fuel capacity. I mean, you're over with your Rotopack on the back. That 4-gallon, you're at 60 gallons of fuel capacity in a 4Runner.
So it's like 300 miles of range right now.
I know. It's like
I think I figured it up, and on my average, it's looking like about 620 is going to be my range, which is.
And that's all relative to on where you're at. Like you fought that headwind coming here the whole way.
Got 8.6 on the way up here, but I could get 14 going back with a tailwind. So it's all about averaging it out.
Altitude, what you're climbing mountains on the highway, what your RPM ranges are on the highway. You're towing a trailer. I mean, there's so many factors that will come into play, and every single person's truck is different. And I think that's one of the big questions that everybody wants to ask is, what does it do to your fuel economy? And I think most everybody out there understands that no matter what you do to your vehicle, it's going to affect your fuel economy. It will never be as good as it is rolling off the Toyota lot.
Right.
It never will.
Right.
You know, because the wind blows, you changes your fuel economy.
Sure.
So I think if they don't want to know that you're going to lose 10 miles per gallon by doing one modification, you know, in hopes that you're going to get longer range, but now you're losing all this economy. Well, that's absolutely not the case.
Right.
You know, it's weight in the right place. There's no added wind resistance. There's, you know, it's really so marginal. You're never really going to notice it.
Right.
You know, it's all the other stuff you're going to do, tread pattern on your tires, tire diameter, all of these other components, your rooftop tents and roof racks and driving habits, you know, and location, sea level's different than 10,000 feet, you know, so it's, there's a lot of other factors, and even those drastic differences aren't that much when it comes to miles per gallon.
Right.
You know, if you look at it in worst case scenario, it's really not that much.
Right.
And it's the compromise that I think what most people are doing with these vehicles is to get them out and away and to go explore. You know, that's what you're going to have to realize when you build something like this, you know, but having that extra capacity is so nice to have.
It is.
You know,
but it's also not an excuse to just throw all the weight that you want. I think
exactly.
I think that's an important thing. It was something we talked about as well, as you see some rigs that people start throwing all this gear on, before you know it, they're over the GVWR. And so having extra fuel capacity is an excuse to overload your vehicle. You need to be cognizant of the whole system at that point. So one last question for people who are debating whether or not this is a mod that they quote unquote need. I don't like to use that word in the Overland industry, but
we use that loosely.
Is this something that is going to give me value for the investment?
Right. You can't ever look at it like we were dealing with the Cummins swaps that we were doing before. Everybody thought, oh man, we can have a diesel engine, we're going to get amazing gas mile or fuel economy. That's not the case, and that's not why you should look at something like that, because it would take 20 years to try to, well, diesel was more expensive than unleaded gas anyway.
Right.
So the mileage that you save is offset by the cost, and it's the mechanics of the motor different to gasoline. Right. Still a computer-driven engine, so it's not like the simple Land Rover Defender, you know, or the Land Cruiser in Africa with a simple diesel engine. It's not the same concept there. Whereas something like this, it's because well, I know in my Tacoma, I could get about 200 miles to the tank, factory tank. Now, I'm going to put that out in one of our videos of what we actually clocked with having this added fuel capacity and how useful that is for how we drive the truck. But it allows you, when you go on a trip, you're planning your trip, should be planning your trip to a certain extent. I really like to have a point A and point B and find stuff in between. But you should be looking at where you're going to get fuel, no matter what kind of capacity your vehicle has. You should look at fuel stops, and don't wait till you're empty to top off, because you may go your next leg not knowing, well, that gas station was there last week, but it's not now.
Especially out west.
Out here you can go very, very far, and if you do run out of fuel, you've got a bigger problem, you know, sometimes, because it's not always really crowded highways. You could be on a dirt track for 2 days, you know, and I've never found a place where I got danger low or ran out. I always had some sort of gas can or something, and that was after pretty heavy trail use and unpredicted circumstances where we used more fuel than we thought. But it's still nice to know that you've got more capacity than you're going to need. You want to have more than what you need so you can tap into it if you have to. In an emergency, helping another vehicle, whatever the case may be. You're at a hotel or you're at a campground or something, and something happens and power is out, natural catastrophe or something, power is out, but somebody's got a generator, but there's no gas. And you can take gas from your platform and get some things running. It could be life-saving equipment, who knows? You never know what your scenario may be, but you do have onboard fuel in a good place on the vehicle. It's not that, oh, now I can just ignore my gas stations forever. That still needs to be a thought process that you're looking out for as far as your trip planning goes. But it's, I think that should be the mindset on the investment. It's not cheap. Nothing done right is going to be cheap. I mean, it can be less expensive in some places than others, but the tanks are made of top-notch materials. I mean, it's strong. The R&D, the testing, the investments that went into these people that are trying to build a great product, that's what you're having to pay for. You know, I don't think people really grasp that a whole lot. It's there is a ton of machinery and technology that goes into this stuff to pressure test it, to load test it.
Well, the science behind the venting and all
absolutely.
that. Right?
Yeah. I mean, there's so much that goes into it. So, you can go to Tractor Supply and buy just a square tank that's designed to just hold liquid in it. That is a totally different scenario than what we're putting in the frame rails of this thing. And you can't expect it to work the same way.
Right.
So it's, that conversation could go on forever with what people think about that, but it's like that with every component. It's this tank, I believe we were told it was $18.95 for the 4Runner, and the install. We normally build our company. We build our rates off of jobs we've actually done. We log everything in the computer. We clock in and clock out as we're doing the job, and we put notes in there. And we look at real times, and there's an average there. And we base that off of a completely stock, brand new vehicle, just like all these manufacturers do. And that's really the only way you can get real numbers. So it's, and every shop is going to be a little different with the way they do it, so just knowing what we've done, I mean, I can't put a number on what it costs to put the thing in, because there's still, even the next 3 that we do, we may find something different. We found the 2nd gen and the 3rd gen Tacomas have frame cross members that are shaped different. So we've had to shim here or something there, reshape a bracket to make it fit right. And there's not anything wrong with the tank. It's because Toyota doesn't, you could have 2019 Tacomas sitting next to each other, and they're all going to be different. Every single one will be slightly different. Even though they come off of an assembly line and they're built by robots, there's still differences there. The bead of a weld may melt a little bit different on the frame to where now you don't have clearance, or a bracket doesn't sit flat and we have to sand that. There's all kinds of different things like that. So I think the concern a lot of people have is just not knowing some of those things, to no fault of their own. It's just not knowing really what it takes to, for one, design and build and manufacture a product, the loopholes they have to go through to make sure it's done right, but then for the install side of it too, to make this product that they designed fit a whole country full of these that are different,
With tolerances that
have variation to them.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, I really appreciate you guys taking care of me and getting Silver all decked out with 56 gallons of fuel. I can't wait to test that. It's been an absolute pleasure working with your team. There's such a good, like I said, there's such a good vibe here.
It's fun,
excited to see where you guys are going, and I love looking at your builds and what you got coming up. And I'll definitely be stopping in to see what's up from time to time.
I know. So, I hope so, man. It's as you see, I mean, we have a good time here. It's hard work, but we have a good time. We can come in and watch Rooster take his pizza out from the frame rail and eat lunch and stuff like that.
But carrying a snack around.
We try to keep it light and fun and have a good time and really just focus on, because we're all proud of what we do, and we use these things as well. We're with you guys out on the trail, and that's what we're passionate about is getting out there. It's not necessarily turning the wrenches on the trucks itself that is like, oh man, I just can't wait to go bust my knuckles on this thing for 3 days. It's a part of what we love to do to get us out and do what we love to do. This is a catalyst to help us live the life that we want to live and just be able to relax really at the end of the day around a campfire, and enjoy what's around us. And it's just building a tool to do a job for you, and we're just glad that folks have been paying attention to us, looking at what we're doing here that's different, and we're just going to keep doing that. We'll always refine what we're doing, and I'm so glad that we've been given this opportunity to work with you on this tank, because this has been something that's been needed for so long. So many people in this country have been needing this thing. And I'm glad that LRA was willing to let us take this on, and were trusting us to give them the input they need to make this better for our U.S. market. That's why we're doing this, is to make it better for everybody else out there with bracket shapes. And these holes need to be elongated or whatever the case, details that no one will ever think of. That's what we're shooting, and that's what we're trying to really nitpick and bring to LRA. And they're just standing there waiting on us to give them the information so they can help fix it and make the best possible product. And it's just awesome to be a part of that. I'm super excited to be a part of that.
Well, I think that it's really going to be a great partnership. Being able to watch the meticulous detail that you guys go to on these installs is very reassuring to me, because I don't like necessarily to let people work on my vehicle. And so you guys are one of the few that I would definitely trust. And really thankful for Ward Harris over at Long Range America and their team, who's got us hooked up with this tank. If you want to get more information on the Long Range America auxiliary tank for the 4Runner, go to longrangeamerica.com. If you want to get on the wait list, you need to email ward@longrangeamerica.com. The list is growing.
It is growing fast.
Pretty quick.
We have 6 tanks right there.
Yeah.
All going into, we have an FJ Cruiser, we have a Tundra, we have Tacoma tanks, all sitting right there against the wall.
Awesome. So yeah, and if you've got other vehicle models, they're also listed on the JK
or the JLs, was it the Commander?
Is it the Commander? Yeah, there's quite a few.
The Commander, the Commander is the older one, but the Gladiator tank is a kind of like the JL tank.
They're perfecting that right now.
Yeah, they're trying to get that kind of squared away. They've done a bunch already, but they're like this one. They're kind of trying to make it right before it's out there for everybody. But but yeah, gosh, man, they've got a very large range of tanks. Obviously, the ones in Australia, you know, so we can get certain part numbers, but we just don't see those types of vehicles that much in the U.S. But I'm excited about what kind of focus they are putting on our U.S. trucks.
Yeah.
You know, that's a major thing. So, like the Tundra's got the 46-gallon tank. I've got that in our truck.
That's massive.
And honestly, like in the Tacoma, that 33-gallon tank is no lower than the stock exhaust when you look under the truck.
Right.
So you see it there because it's a silver tank. The factory's black, just like this one. Matches your truck and your bumper really good.
Blends right in.
So it blends right into what the truck looks like. But if it was a black tank, you know, your axle is black, so you really wouldn't see it that much.
It blends in.
You know?
A lot of people bedline them before they put them in. We wanted to go just with the factory configuration because I want to test it. You know, I want to hit. I don't want to try and hit it on things, but if I do, I want to see exactly how it does in its stock configuration. I want to see how it does with corrosion resistance and all that kind of stuff, because it is an aluminized steel tank, so the coating on there is supposed to be impervious to corrosion. So we're going to test all that stuff out over the coming years. And so yeah, if you guys are interested in checking out tactical application vehicles, you can see them on YouTube. They've got a website. It's at TAVllc on Instagram and Facebook as well. So all kinds of cool stuff. You can see their builds, and really excited to see where this is going, man. I really appreciate all the effort and ready to hit the trail.
Heck yeah. Sounds good. Let's do it. All right.